Hi everyone, today we're going to continue on with our sheet metal project 1, and we are going to be transferring our blueprints that we did our paper box on onto our sheet metal. So we should have already squared up our piece of sheet metal that I gave you. Just to double check, you always want to take your combination square and you want to line it up on all 4 corners and make sure that it is perfectly straight. It's a little bit easier if you do this on a table, but just so you can see in the screen, I have it higher up. So this is a perfectly square piece of sheet metal. The first thing we need to do that we did not need to do on our paper is measure out our layout. So the basic outline, because this is about 11 3/4 by 11 1/4. So after we've squared it, it did take off a little bit from each side. So since this is square, I'm just gonna start off at the bottom. The bottom is gonna be my base, where I'm gonna start with everything and know that this side is going to be from where I need to put a mark from everything. So starting off, measure out an 8.5 inch, so 8.5 inch. Go up, right at 8.5. And you're going to do the same thing on the other side. So you'll notice you can flip, or you can just go backwards, either or you can even go in from this way if that helps you. This might be a little bit easier if you're not the most comfortable with measuring still, which is totally okay. Hopefully by the end of this unit, you will be good. So 8.5, you want to make your mark, and you're going to take your ruler and you're going to connect your lines. Now I am going to be using Sharpie just so you can see in the video, because it is really hard to see on sheet metal in general. So you can see those are my 2 8.5 inch lines from the bottom point of my sheet metal. So I am going to connect them and spin so I can see. We'll be using our scratch awl. Make sure that your points are lined up. The reason we do these 2 points is so that we can make sure that we are even all the way across. So line it up. The Sharpie makes it a little bit harder, but when you're just using a scratch awl, it's much easier. Make sure you have pressure in the middle so it doesn't move. Draw your line. I'm gonna draw this with Sharpie just so you can see. You'll notice I'm going on the outside of the line, so I'm still able to see the scratch awl mark. So when I'm making my cuts, it'll be a lot easier. So this is gonna be our 8.5 inch. So from here, this is my bottom, up 8.5. Next thing on this side, on the bottom, we are going to go 11 inches. So I have decided I'm gonna go from this side. So I'm gonna go to the 11 inch mark. Make sure you're lined up right at the edge of your sheet metal, 11 inch, right here. And I'm gonna do the same exact thing over here. So line it up at the end, and then I'm gonna do a mark at that 11 inches. So you can see it with Sharpie. You have right there and right here. I'm going to flip my sheet metal and connect the lines just like we did with that 8.5 inch mark. So line it up, hold in the center, draw your line. Once again, I'll draw with Sharpie just so you can see. I'm going right above that mark so I can actually see my line when I do my cuts. So this is going to be our box. It's an 11 by 8.5. So if you remember back when we made our paper boxes, it's the same exact size as a piece of paper. So if you look closely, you can see my marks are right at that piece of paper. The Sharpie's a little bit out, but I can see that. Really want to make sure that you measure this correctly, because all the other measurements are based off of this. Once you have this, we're going to start with our 3 1/4 inch hemline. So you'll put your ruler now at the edge of your paper, and you want to be measuring at the edge is fine, or on here. I'm going to do the edge because I feel that's easier to be fully accurate. So on the bottom, make a mark at 3 1/4. From the top, Now notice I'm going from this line. This is kind of dead space up here. So you could draw an X if you want to remind you you won't be measuring from there. So I'm gonna put any 1 inch mark and then 3/4 of an inch, I'm gonna go down. I'm gonna do the same thing on this side. So line it up at the edge, 3/4 of an inch, make a mark. I'm gonna go from the top one over here, 3/4 of an inch. And then flip it again. I'm gonna make my marks while I can still fully see. Right there, right here, here, and there. Line it up, 3/4 of an inch. And do my little Sharpie mark. Same thing from the top of this line. So from the scratch line, 3/4 of an inch. Draw my Sharpie so you can see it easier in the video. And then last one, you're gonna go off this line. So from your scratch all line, you're gonna go 3/4 of an inch one more time. And then down 3/4 of an inch again over here. So just like we did on the paper, this is what it looks like. So one thing you can notice too is I can tell that these two are lined up, are not lined up. I did that purposely. So a big mistake that a lot of people have done with this project is they don't measure from this outside line when they're doing their 3/4 of an inch. They go from the edge of the paper or the edge of the sheet metal. So you have to make sure you're going from this black line for the inwards ones. So I'm gonna go back over here and I'm gonna remeasure. So you can see I'm only at about 1/2 inch. So once again, you wanna be at that 3/4 of an inch. This is why you always want to look and see if it makes sense. Measure twice, cut once. That's our rule. So now I can see that I'm looking a little bit better. When you have that, you're going to take your ruler and you're going to line it up, scratch all your lines. I'm gonna draw a Sharpie one more time so you can see this. This one I'm gonna go still right above that line. That one's a little bit on, that's okay, I can still see it. And you're gonna do this all around. So you can see the basic outline. Once again, we have our 3/4 of an inch hem. If it's gonna confuse you having this little portion, go ahead and you can shade that in with a Sharpie, with a pencil, whatever's gonna help you, because you know that you are not using this side, you are only using in here. If it's gonna confuse you so much, even feel free if you wanna shear off this piece and this larger piece, you can. I will give you that choice and that option in class. After you go through this way, we are going to move on to the next step, which I will show you here shortly. I decided I went ahead and sheared off so you can see a little bit better. This is our outline, 8.5 by 11. We've already done our 3/4 of an inch hem. Now we're going to do our long and our short sides. So now we're working from the edge of the sheet metal since I sheared off both of those portions, those extra pieces. From each of those corners, just like we did 2 points on each of these corners, we're gonna do the same thing, but at 2 3/4 of an inch. So we'll measure from that edge, go up 2 3/4, make a scratch all. You're gonna go from the other corner up, and you're gonna go down 1, 2, 3/4 of an inch. Use your scratch awl. Flip, do the same thing. And now you can see those marks. So I have those marks. Same thing, ruler, we are going to connect them. Line it up, hold in the center. So this is our first one. And I'm gonna do the rest and then I'll show you what it looks like afterwards. But once again, you're just gonna take your ruler and you're going to connect the lines, line it up, use your scratch awl, Sharpie. Well, for me, Sharpie. For you, you'll just scratch awl and you'll be good to go. So you can see here, this is what it should look like once you have finished step 5. And I've also went ahead and labeled everything in Sharpie so you can see. You can label in pencil. If you want to do Sharpie, that's fine, but if you're giving as a gift, I would recommend not. So now I'm moving on to step 6, which is our short side hems, which is really our tabs. So just like with our paper, from these 2 lines, we're going up 3/4 of an inch. From these 2 lines, we're going down 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to line that up at 1 inch. I'm using the 8, and then I'm gonna go up 3/4. And then down here, I'm going to go down 3/4. Line it up over here. Up 3/4. From down here, down 3/4. I'm gonna move a little bit closer. And I'm gonna connect those lines. Now remember, with this step, you don't wanna connect through the long sides, you just wanna connect underneath the short sides. But we still line it up so it's even throughout. So I'm gonna line that up. So that's why I'm only going through the short side. Same thing over here. So go the same way. Find that mark. Only through the short side. So you have these 4 tabs. These tabs are what's gonna allow your metal to actually stick together when we put everything together. So we have our tabs. Just like that. Next up, we're gonna be doing our 45-degree angles. This is when I would recommend using your combination square. If you think your measurements are absolutely perfect, you can use a ruler and connect through the corners this way. That way would work great if you're perfect with your measurements. But if you have your measurements are not 100% accurate, you're gonna use your combination square. This is our 45-degree angle right here. So what you need to do is you're gonna orient it, and we're cutting through the hem, the tab, and then up here, this other hem. So if that helps you, I'm gonna place the base on that corner, and I'm gonna line up my ruler along that straight or flat edge. So once you have that, I'm gonna move it closer to me so I can fully see on top. Once you have that, take your scratch awl hold. Make sure if you need to readjust, you can. Make your scratch all mark. So this one will be a little bit harder to make sure it stays straight. So you might have to put a little bit more pressure. But you can see, goes right through. You'll do the same thing up here. So line that up with a corner, then your straight edge. You can really see my combination of square moving. Please make sure you're trying to be as accurate as possible, and you can continue that through. So now you can see 45-degree angles. So that's one side. I'm gonna do the rest. You just need to flip your combination square to make sure that you are orienting yourself correctly. So for example, put that base right there. I'm gonna move it closer so I can line it up accurately. Once you have that accurate, hold down. You can see that. One good thing to note, I'm going off the corner of, per se not the Sharpie, but right where I can see my scratch all. So I've done these two sides, and then you don't want to forget to do your tab on the inside. For the tab on the inside, you are going to need to orient your ruler and your combination square. So it's going to be on the inside flat line. You're going to put your, and make sure it's right, so you see right here, I would be making I'm making a mistake because the tab needs to match the angle on the other side. So line it up, flip your sheet metal if you need to, right on the corner, make it straight, line that ruler up right on that line in the corner, draw that line, and I have one of my tabs. You want to do the same thing on all of these tabs, and this one I'm going to straight on the bottom. Use the straight edge on the bottom to make that 45-degree angle. So you can see here, I have one side fully done. I'll complete the other side, and then we're pretty good to go. Perfect, so I have all of my angles fully complete. When you're done with this, grab a Sharpie, and you're just gonna want to do an outline of what you're going to cut out. If you want a shade, awesome. This is just gonna help you visualize where you need to make your cuts, because remember, this is the only piece of sheet metal you are getting for this project. So if you make a big mistake, unfortunately, that's gonna hurt your grade. And this is a pretty big project. So once again, make sure come through, just so you can see and know where exactly you're going to be cutting and what you're cutting out. But that's the basic outline. That's what we're trying to accomplish today. And then when we come back, we are going to be going through how to cut and use this. Also, please remember, on the back, you need to put a piece of tape with your name and period on it so that we know whose is whose when we come back to work on this.